Hi, my name is Russ Siegenberg. I'm a psychologist practicing in Utah, and I've had the unfortunate experience, as probably most of you have, of having had ME/CFS. I had 4 years of serious symptoms many years ago and was able to recover, and I want to tell you my story and what I'm able to offer you. So I contracted mononucleosis in the summer of 1971. At the time I spent 10 days in the University of Massachusetts infirmary, and they basically had you sleep it off. And I got over the acute stage of that virus, but my health was never the same after that. And I got colds very easily if I overdid things, if I worked too hard or played sports. And I loved playing basketball, but I had to give it up at that time. And so I just slowed down my activities. I was able to do my schoolwork, but it was kind of miserable and I never felt very well. So that went on for about 5 years. I should mention, as part of trying to improve my post-viral symptoms, I took up meditation, and I was pretty faithful, did that 15 or 20 minutes twice a day. And a couple of years later, I took up yoga and did that for about 45 minutes a day, although not always at the same time. I also adopted a whole food, plant-based diet, and eliminated most of the refined carbohydrates, red meats, sugary drinks, fried foods, and margarine, those things that can cause inflammation in the body. And that was helpful. And I started to feel better and started to exercise a little more. However, there was a missing piece of the puzzle. Even though my new lifestyle seemed helpful and my post-viral condition was getting more under control, it was part of the things that I still didn't understand, and it would bite me in the back later on. In 1976, I obtained a job at a health resort. I was really into plant-based diet and those type of things, so I was pretty excited about this. They had pretty strict rules at this resort, and the staff was expected to follow the same rules. It was kind of an interesting place. They had us work 6 hours a day, 6 days a week, which actually was better than just working full-time. But part of the diet was they thought you should just have fruit for breakfast. And I suppose that would have been fine, except I was on the grounds crew, and sometimes we were doing heavy labor. And it started to take a toll, and I was thinking of leaving as I felt a little weaker day by day. And then just before I could leave, they gave us a really tough work assignment, and they had us dig ditches. And I think we were going to dig ditches all day by hand. I only made it through most of the morning, and then the unimaginable happened. All my energy just disappeared, like in a matter of minutes. And it did not come back after that. I had to ask to be switched to a different assignment, and they gave me an office assignment. But it was very perplexing. I knew something really serious had happened. At first, I didn't even know what happened to me. I didn't know what to call it. There was no medical help available, no one to talk to who understood. Severe symptoms I had to deal with daily. At the time, there was no internet, so there was not much information to obtain, no plan for healing, and a very uncertain future. I did eventually go to the University of Florida, or actually it was Florida State, up in Tallahassee, and I looked up my symptoms in a medical textbook, and at the time they called it neurasthenia. There was no cure, and they thought it was psychological. So when I went to the doctor, he didn't have too much to say. So I just felt like I was on my own. And so I went through 4 years with those more severe symptoms of chronic fatigue syndrome that one gets, like post-exertional malaise, PEM, And I had pains in my nerves at times. They seemed like they got on fire almost. And I just had to rest for a couple of weeks and they'd get better. I had orthostatic intolerability. It was difficult to stand up for any period of time. And so life was a big struggle. But I did have a glimmer of insight in that when I had tried short bursts of movement over the years, I sometimes felt something different, a little pulse of energy, so I devised an experiment. And I felt like the Wright brothers were going into the sky because I thought I could fall drastically. I was going to jog a little, but intersperse that with a lot of walking. And I thought that creating that type of more energy might be helpful. So I did that. I went for a few blocks and it worked. I didn't feel tired afterwards. And after doing that for several days, my energy levels started to rise. And I had a new concept in my mind that not too many people have, and the idea was that we have a core energy level that can rise or fall. So I was very excited that my new system was working, and then it didn't, because I would feel better for a week or so, and then I would overdo things and crash and go back to ground zero. And I decided I had to get pretty serious, so I took what I call a take no prisoners attitude. I was going to stick to my routine no matter what. And you know, because people pressure you to socialize or there's work to be done, I was going to stick to my guns and pace myself properly and continue to do my walk jogging routine. And I did that pretty successfully for about 3 months and felt pretty good. And then I overdid it, as you know, I was used to doing. I'd crashed many, many times. But something different happened. I crashed, but PEM didn't set in. I didn't get real weak. I was kind of normal. I woke up and the sleep had kind of restored my energy. And I didn't realize at the time, but I would never again have another episode of PEM. So I was on my road to recovery. It was 2 or 3 years. It was gradual recovery, but I began to do more things in my life. I started to attend graduate school, went on to get a job, and I worked full-time for 40 years. I jogged regularly, but interspersed that with walking. But after time, I decided I could play some sports, and I got more serious about my jogging first. I remember I had a goal. I wanted to be able to run a mile in 10 minutes or less, and then I thought I could start to play basketball, which I loved. And I played full court basketball for about 20 years with young guys, and we'd play for an hour, hour and a half, and then I'd go to work and sometimes do things at night. So I was in pretty good health that way. Also went on hikes up the mountains in Utah, 10 or 12 mile hikes, and I'd be fine. One time I went on a 16-mile hike up a mountain, and there was 4,000 feet of elevation, and I never did have any relapses of the CFS. My immune system always seemed a little compromised. I had to be careful and not overdo things, but if I got sick, I would just rest for a couple of days and I'd be fine. So I want to talk about some of the things people can do to help them recover. So pacing is the most essential tool in the ME-CFS toolkit. Without it, recovery, I think, is about impossible. So meaning you just have to conserve your energy and not overdo it. Unfortunately, when people are in the acute stage, your energy might be 1/4 or 1/8 of a normal person, a healthy person. So you have to take well-positioned rest periods after doing a little bit. And it's maddening, but it's necessary to get started. Proper pacing might require planning, anticipation of what could go wrong. So if you socialize, things might go on too long. You might have to have an escape plan, for instance. Have to have firm boundaries for yourself, and sometimes to tell others that you have limits. You need a nap or you need a break. So because most activities are stimulating, it's important to intersperse rest periods so you can wind down and see how you really feel. For example, if you're cleaning the kitchen, you might break it down into 5-minute periods and see how you do. The etiology of ME/CFS is not well understood by science. The best way to recover are debated, and some people say you cannot recover at all. And if you're a person suffering with this and you feel you can't recover, I want to encourage you to say you can recover. It just takes a lot of study and experimentation, but there are many people who have recovered at this point. The cause of CFS remains unknown. I'm shortening it from ME/CFS for the sake of brevity. The cause remains unknown, but popular hypotheses include infectious triggers, microbiome disruption, immune response dysregulation, endocrine abnormalities, and intracellular dysfunctions, such as in the mitochondria. There's a man named Noor Nazir that wrote an article in 2021 and explored a lot of these different possible causes. Although biological markers are being found and some theories are developing, medical doctors' treatment options are quite limited because there's still no therapy that's seen as successful. Brain retraining is probably the most popular treatment available. There are limited favorable research studies on this, but there are many first-hand reports of its helpfulness. Brain retraining advocates suggest that CFS is caused by nervous system dysregulation from both mental and physical stress. So the goal is to remove the causes of physical stress, which sometimes you need medical attention for some of those, if it's, for instance, mold or heavy metals or something like that. And the mental things, the idea is that your body goes into overdrive and flight or flight from having had such acute stress in your life, and you gradually recondition yourself to accept more activity. The percentage of people who have recovered may be higher than the 5% that's typically cited. People that go into formal programs is believed to have more success. There's a YouTube channel I'd recommend by Raylan Eagle, that's spelled Aegle, and she has guests who have recovered from ME/CFS, and that's very encouraging to listen to them. I think I've listened to 50 to 75 stories, possibly more. There's always some combination of the same 5 factors that I've noticed, and the 5 factors are medical help, changing diet, improving mental health, especially stress reduction, pacing, and movement. So we have some clues as to what works. We don't know clearly why. As I said, there's no proven scientific unifying theory. Brain retraining is probably the approach that has the most buzz to it. There seems to be a definite mental health component to recovery. I want to talk about the program I've developed. It's a new holistic approach to recovery. And as I said, most people recover focus on the same 5 areas of medical, diet, pacing, mental health, and movement. So I mostly focus on pacing, mental health, and movement. The brain retraining theory speculates that ME/CFS is caused by the autonomic nervous system getting overloaded by stress. However, the stress may be more of a barrier to healing than actual cause of the condition. Stress does take up energy, contributes to inflammation, and can interfere with healing. Also, fear of post-exertional malaise, PEM, can cause people to become almost phobic about being active. Fear of movement is problematic as there's little chance of recovery without safely increasing activity. So learning the skills to maintain a positive attitude and a relaxed state of mind is an important part of the recovery journey. Stress complicates the recovery process, and the Power Up program explains brain retraining and other considerations. Each person must have hope and a plan for recovery that they believe in. Motion must be managed on a conscious and a subconscious level. So in the Power Up program, the first line of defense includes bottom-up methods such as meditation, nature, and art, cognitive tools include CBT, radical acceptance, diffusion techniques from ACT, and using paradox to shift subconscious perceptions. In some cases, deeply entrenched negative beliefs from past pain and trauma, or schema, must be addressed. Educated movement is a very integral part of the Power Up program, because rest does not seem to cure CFS. Many people have tried that. If rest could fix CFS, lots of people would have been cured by now. Graduated exercise training, GET, has been shown to be counterproductive. GET was a program where they had people increase their activity, usually walking, and they increased by a certain percentage each week, and they were told to ignore how they felt but just power through it. That was counterproductive for about 80% of the people who participated, and I think it's because you have to learn to listen to your body. It's not so simple as they thought. So is it possible to exercise safely? Yes, safe movement is possible. There are several principles to keep in mind. Some of those principles are to first consult a medical doctor about your ability to exercise safely. Never exercise beyond a state of gentle fatigue. Don't exceed your conditioning, that is your muscles and heart and lung capacity. The Power Up program recommends aerobic exercise as you build yourself up to that, and gives some simple exercises that you can get started with. Frequent and timely rest periods are essential to avoiding PAM, so interval training is suggested. And the thought is that aerobic exercise done without fatigue leads to energy gains, especially overnight. And appropriate pacing must be done for the rest of your daily activities to not lose the energy you've gained. So what's different about the Power Up program? As I said, it'll teach you to pace effectively and stabilize your energy, learn to decrease anxiety and fear, and build confidence in the recovery process. The Power Up program posits that the body has an energy storage system that supplements the ATP generated from daily glycogen and fatty acid metabolism. The difference maker is you'll learn important exercise science principles and specific methods for building energy. Hard to believe, of course, but come and check it out for yourself. These techniques are the result of 45 years of personal experimentation. There's a no-risk offer because there's free materials on my website to help people become more familiar with the concepts of the Power Up program. The website is cfsrecovery.net. You can buy a book there if you're intrigued and want to learn more, and there's a low-cost PDF version available. So for now, there's free classes for the first 75 people to sign up. Classes will be held on Zoom on the second and fourth Wednesdays of each month, beginning very soon, November 12th, 2025 at 2 p.m. U.S. Mountain Standard Time, or MST. So register at visionbooks77@gmail.com. Just state your name and your desire to join the classes and you'll be welcome. Appreciate you listening. Hope to see you there for the classes. Thank you.